For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the evening of August 12, 2005, 16-year-old Naomi Fletcher left her family's rental cottage in Cape Hatteras, NC, for a twilight walk near the Lighthouse. She never returned. Despite an extensive investigation by local authorities and the National Park Service, Naomi vanished without a trace from the windswept Outer Banks. For 14 years, her family lived with agonizing uncertainty, haunted by the desolate shoreline. Then, in 2019, a discovery was made. A sand-caked locket, unearthed from a dune slipface after a brutal nor'easter. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Naomi Fletcher and the hidden currents that finally brought truth to light. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, stands as a testament to untamed coastal power, a remote finger of land sculpted by relentless winds and unforgiving tides. Its iconic lighthouse, a sentinel against the vast Atlantic, watches over miles of shifting sands, towering dunes, and a coastline where the ocean's influence is absolute. It is a place of breathtaking, desolate beauty, where the line between land and sea is constantly redrawn, and nature's forces dictate the rhythm of life, and sometimes its abrupt end. In 2005, this formidable landscape was home to Naomi Fletcher, a vibrant 16-year-old with a deep connection to the ocean. A dedicated volunteer junior lifeguard, Naomi understood the deceptive allure and inherent dangers of the waters she patrolled. She was known for her infectious energy, her passion for the coast, and her unwavering commitment to helping others. Her presence was a familiar, welcome sight within the close-knit community that thrived amidst the Outer Banks' wild grandeur. On a late summer evening in 2005, as twilight began to soften the harsh edges of the landscape, Naomi found herself near the base of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse beacon. The air was cool, carrying the familiar scent of salt and damp sand, and a brisk wind whipped through her hair. She paused, her phone in hand, to capture a moment, a wind-blown selfie against the dramatic backdrop of the fading light. It was a fleeting, unremarkable act, a typical teenage gesture in an otherwise ordinary day. Yet, this simple photograph would become the last known image of Naomi Fletcher. As the last vestiges of daylight surrendered to the deepening night, a quiet unease began to settle over the rental cottage where Naomi was staying. Her expected return did not materialize. Initial calls to her phone went unanswered, dismissed at first as a dead battery or poor signal. But as minutes stretched into an hour and then two, the casual concern morphed into a chilling certainty. Naomi was not simply late. She was gone. The realization ignited a frantic, desperate search. Family and friends, joined by local residents, scoured the immediate vicinity of the Lighthouse boardwalk and its surrounding backdunes, their voices cutting through the darkness, calling her name into the void. The wind, once a playful companion, now seemed to mock their efforts, carrying their cries away. As the first hours of panic bled into the early morning, the stark, terrifying truth became undeniable. A young girl had vanished without a trace into the vast, indifferent expanse of Cape Hatteras. The dawn following Naomi Fletcher's disappearance brought not clarity, but a heightened sense of dread. With the first light, a comprehensive search operation was swiftly mobilized across the Cape Hatteras landscape. Law enforcement, bolstered by volunteer teams, fanned out from the lighthouse, meticulously combing the boardwalk, the sprawling backdunes, and the surrounding maritime forests. Coast Guard vessels and local fishing boats began systematic grid searches offshore, their sonar sweeping the treacherous seabed. Every inch of the immediate vicinity was scrutinized, every shadow explored in the desperate hope of finding a sign, a clue, anything that could explain the teenager's sudden vanishing. Yet, despite the overwhelming scale of the effort, the initial days yielded nothing. No body was recovered from the churning waters, nor was any trace of struggle found on land. The soft, shifting sands of the back dunes, which might have held footprints, had been disturbed by the previous night's wind and the trampling of early searchers. The wild Eversea, hanging environment of the Outer Banks, usually a source of beauty, now became an unforgiving obstacle, its vastness swallowing potential evidence. Park Ranger Cole Vining, a man intimately familiar with every cove and current of this challenging coastline, was among the first responders, his deep understanding of the local terrain proving crucial in directing search patterns. He knew the deceptive power of the rip currents and the ease with which the landscape could conceal. Without concrete evidence, investigators grappled with multiple theories. Was it an accidental drowning, a misstep into a powerful rip current? Could she have become disoriented in the vast dunes after dark, succumbing to exposure? Or, more chillingly, had she been abducted, a crime almost unimaginable in this seemingly tranquil community? Each theory was explored, but the absence of any confirming detail prevented a clear direction for the burgeoning investigation. The lack of a definitive path made it impossible to prioritize one scenario over another, leaving a void of speculation. As days bled into weeks, the initial flurry of activity began to wane, replaced by a somber, growing desperation. The constant hum of search helicopters faded, and the hopeful faces of volunteers grew weary. The hope of finding Naomi alive diminished with each passing tide, leaving behind a gnawing emptiness. The community, once united in a desperate search, now grappled with the profound and baffling mystery of how a vibrant young woman could simply disappear into the indifferent expanse of Cape Hatteras, leaving only questions in her wake. The case, devoid of leads, was slowly but inexorably heading towards an agonizing silence. Despite the initial intensity of the search, the investigation into Naomi Fletcher's disappearance began to stall. Every lead meticulously pursued dissolved into ambiguity. The extensive land searches yielded no personal effects, no signs of struggle, and no indication of her path. The ocean, vast and unyielding, surrendered no trace of her. Without a body, without a witness, and without any definitive evidence, the initial theories of accidental drowning, getting lost, or abduction remained just that. Theories, none supported by tangible proof. The relentless efforts of law enforcement, including the dedicated park ranger Cole Vining, hit an insurmountable wall of silence. The physical landscape itself, constantly reshaped by wind and water, seemed to conspire against the investigators, erasing any subtle clues that might have once existed. As weeks turned into months, the daily news updates, once saturated with appeals and progress reports, gradually ceased. The task force dwindled, and the active search transitioned into a cold case file, relegated to the archives of unsolved mysteries. The urgent, frantic energy that had gripped Cape Hatteras slowly receded, leaving behind a profound sense of loss and an agonizing void. The once prominent yellow ribbons and missing person flyers, bleached by the sun and tattered by the wind, eventually disappeared, replaced by the quiet, enduring pain of an unanswered question. Naomi Fletcher's disappearance became a persistent local legend, a chilling narrative whispered among residents, and a stark reminder of the coast's unpredictable dangers. Her story served as a cautionary tale, a testament to the fact that even in a close-knit community, tragedy could strike without explanation. For her family, however, it was not a legend but a raw, unceasing ache, a life suspended in perpetual uncertainty. The absence of closure was a daily torment, denying them the peace of mourning. 14 years passed, an immense chasm of time during which seasons cycled, storms raged, and the very geography of Cape Hatteras shifted and reformed. The dunes eroded and rebuilt, inlets opened and closed, and the powerful currents rearranged the seabed with ceaseless indifference. Any fleeting piece of evidence, if it had ever existed, would have been long since buried, swept away, or utterly transformed by the elements. The hope of finding Naomi, or even understanding her fate, had faded to a faint ember, kept alive only by the unwavering love of her family and the stubborn refusal of the human spirit to abandon a loved one. The trail had gone cold, seemingly beyond the reach of any investigation, lost to the relentless march of time and the unforgiving power of the Outer Banks. 14 years after Naomi Fletcher v. Vanished, the desolate peace of Cape Hatteras was shattered by the brutal force of a powerful nor'easter. For days, gale-force winds lashed the coast, driving mountainous waves against the barrier islands. The storm surge reshaped the familiar landscape, tearing away sections of boardwalk, carving new channels into the sand, and dramatically altering the contours of the dunes. Entire sections of beach disappeared, only for new ones to be sculpted by the retreating tides. When the tempest finally relented, leaving behind a scarred but renewed coastline, the sheer scale of its destructive and creative power was evident. Among the first to venture out onto the newly reconfigured beach was Alma Torres, a seasoned surf caster whose life was inextricably tied to the rhythms of the ocean. She knew these sands intimately, understanding that the aftermath of such a storm often yielded unexpected treasures or, sometimes, grim reminders of the sea's dominion. On this particular morning, her eyes, accustomed to scanning the shifting patterns of the surf, caught an anomaly on the freshly exposed surface of a dune slipface. Partially buried, caked with hardened sand, lay a small, metallic object. With a practiced hand, Alma carefully dislodged the item. It was a locket, tarnished and encrusted, but its distinctive design, a delicate seashell engraving, was still discernible beneath the grime. A sudden, chilling recognition seized her. She had seen this locket before, or one strikingly similar, on a flyer long since faded and forgotten by most. The local legend of the missing junior lifeguard, Naomi Fletcher, resurfaced with a jolt. This was not merely an old piece of jewelry. It was a tangible link to a 14-year-old mystery. The discovery sent shockwaves through the quiet community of Cape Hatteras. News of the locket, quickly confirmed by Naomi's family through photographs of the original, spread like wildfire. After years of silence, after the case had been relegated to the cold files, a physical piece of evidence had finally emerged from the vast, indifferent sands. The initial relief that something had been found was quickly overtaken by a cascade of questions and a renewed, profound sense of shock. The cold case, dormant for so long, was abruptly and unequivocally reopened. How had the locket, a small, personal artifact, traveled from the vicinity of the lighthouse to a dune slipface after so many years? What forces had preserved it, only to reveal it now? Most importantly, what could this single, sand-caked object possibly tell investigators about Naomi Fletcher's fate, a fate that had remained shrouded in mystery for a decade and a half? The locket was not just a relic. It was a potential key, a silent witness to a story that the ocean had finally begun to tell. The discovery of Naomi Fletcher's locket acted as a powerful jolt, instantly reactivating a cold case long since buried under the weight of time and unanswered questions. For 14 years, the file had gathered dust, a testament to a mystery that seemed destined to remain unsolved. Now, with a tangible piece of evidence finally in hand, the investigation was thrust back into the forefront. Detectives who had long since moved on, or even retired, were consulted. Old case files, yellowed and brittle, were retrieved from deep storage, their contents meticulously re-examined for any detail that might suddenly gain new significance in light of the locket's emergence. New specialists, experts in various fields, were brought in, their fresh perspectives considered vital for an inquiry that had previously exhausted all conventional avenues. The locket itself became the singular, most crucial piece of evidence. It was no longer merely a sentimental trinket. It was a potential key to understanding a tragedy. Every aspect of its discovery was scrutinized with painstaking detail. Its precise location on the dune slipface, the depth at which it was found, the type of sand that clung to its surface. even the angle at which it had been partially uncovered by the storm. All were meticulously documented and analyzed. Investigators understood that the dynamic nature of the Cape Hatteras environment meant that traditional forensic methods, usually focused on crime scenes, would be insufficient. The Locket had spent over a decade exposed to the relentless forces of nature, demanding a far more specialized approach. This realization underscored the need for advanced scientific and environmental analysis. The sand caked within its delicate hinge, the corrosion on its metallic surface, the very manner in which it had come to rest on the dune, these were not just random occurrences. They were potential data points, silent witnesses to a complex narrative of currents, tides, and geological shifts. The investigation pivoted from purely criminal forensics to a deep dive into coastal dynamics and sedimentology. This shift in focus highlighted the necessity for expertise beyond standard police work, setting the stage for the involvement of individuals with a profound understanding of the natural forces at play on a barrier island. The team faced an immense challenge, interpreting clues from an object that had been battered by storms, buried by sand, and exposed to saltwater for over a decade in such a dynamic environment was unprecedented. The relentless reshaping of the coastline meant that any historical context was constantly changing. How could one trace the journey of such a small item through 14 years of powerful, unceasing natural processes? The Locket offered hope, but it also presented a formidable scientific puzzle, requiring innovative thinking and cutting-edge techniques to unlock its secrets. Its story, if it could be deciphered, promised to finally illuminate the fate of Naomi Fletcher. The complexities of the Locket's journey through 14 years of relentless coastal transformation demanded a highly specialized form of expertise. This necessity led investigators to Dr. René Dubois, a distinguished coastal engineer whose work focused on the intricate dynamics of barrier island ecosystems, including sediment transport, tidal patterns, and the ephemeral nature of underwater channels. Dr. Dubois understood how the ocean's forces could both bury and reveal, and how even the smallest particle held environmental data. He was brought in to unlock the secrets held within Naomi's Locket, an artifact that had become a silent witness to a long unsolved mystery. Dr. Dubois' examination was meticulous, moving beyond superficial analysis to a deep dive into the Locket's microscopic details. His focus narrowed to the delicate hinge mechanism, a natural trap for fine particulate matter, protected from the harshest scouring of the open beach. Using advanced microscopy and spectrographic techniques, he performed a painstaking grain analysis on the minute quantities of sand and silt embedded within the hinge. The results were immediate and groundbreaking. The particles were not typical beach sand, but rather a specific type of fine, dark silt, characteristic of inlet migration silt. This indicated the Locket had spent time in a highly dynamic estuarine environment, specifically a short, rarely exposed rip channel. Such channels form and disappear quickly, often hidden beneath the surface or obscured by shifting sandbars, known for their powerful, seaward-pulling currents. This discovery provided a critical piece of the puzzle, suggesting a specific, dangerous type of water movement. To further pinpoint the Locket's origin and subsequent path, Dr. Dubois employed cutting-edge, tide backtracking technology. This sophisticated method utilized historical tidal charts, ocean current data, and geological surveys of the Cape Hatteras coastline from 2005 onwards. By inputting the Locket's current location and the characteristics of the embedded silt, the system could reverse engineer its probable journey, accounting for 14 years of coastal erosion, deposition, and storm events. The combined analysis of the grain structure and the tide backtracking data converged on a single, astonishing conclusion. The Locket's journey, and by extension, Naomi's likely fate, could be traced to a specific feeder cut hidden by storm berms. This was a previously unrecorded or overlooked underwater channel, a narrow, powerful conduit that would have been obscured from view by the natural sand barriers built up by storms. Such a feeder cut, connected to a rip channel, would have been an invisible trap, capable of rapidly pulling an unsuspecting individual out into deeper waters. The Locket, having been caught in this very system, was eventually deposited on the dune slipface by the powerful nor'easter, a final, crucial piece of evidence delivered by the very forces that had taken Naomi Fletcher 14 years earlier. The meticulous scientific analysis, spearheaded by Dr. René Dubois, finally provide the definitive answer to Naomi Fletcher's disappearance, connecting the disparate pieces of a 14-year-old puzzle. The identification of the hidden feeder cut and its associated rip channel, revealed by the Locket's unique silt signature, offered a chillingly plausible explanation. On that fateful evening in 2005, Naomi, perhaps venturing too close to the water's edge in the fading light or caught unaware by a sudden swell, was likely swept into one of these powerful, ephemeral currents. The feeder cut, obscured by storm berms and operating as an invisible trap, would have rapidly funneled her into the rip channel, pulling her swiftly and irrevocably out into the deeper, unforgiving waters of the Atlantic. Her locket, torn from her or lost during the struggle, then became embedded in the dynamic silt of that very channel, a silent witness to her final moments. After years of being buried and shifted by the ocean floor, the powerful nor'easter, with its churning currents and dramatic reshaping of the coastline, finally dislodged it, carrying it inland to be deposited on the dune slipface, a message from the deep. This scientific closure, derived from the microscopic analysis of a single, sand-caked locket, offered a concrete and plausible scenario, finally resolving the mystery of how a vibrant teenager could vanish without a trace from a well-trafficked area like the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. It was not a theory based on speculation, but a conclusion rooted in verifiable environmental forensics. For Naomi's family, the findings, while not bringing her back, offered the first true measure of peace in over a decade. The agonizing uncertainty, the endless what-ifs, were finally replaced by a concrete, albeit tragic, understanding of her fate. The community, too, found a sense of resolution, the long-standing local legend now underpinned by scientific truth. Naomi Fletcher's story became a poignant reminder of the ocean's majestic power and its inherent dangers, a testament to how even the most familiar landscapes can harbor hidden perils. It also underscored the remarkable evolution of cold case investigations, demonstrating that advancements in scientific forensics could illuminate truths long thought lost to time. The Locket, a small, personal artifact, transformed into a groundbreaking piece of evidence, proving that even after years of silence, the persistent human drive to seek truth, combined with cutting-edge science, can bring answers from the most unlikely sources. Naomi's legacy endures not just as a tragic loss, but as a testament to the enduring power of nature and the relentless pursuit of understanding, a final whisper from the restless tides of Cape Hatteras.